Welcome to yet another video. In this class, you're going to learn about the summary of the essay, encoding and decoding. I know you're putting a lot of effort to crack this exam, and I am with you on your each and every step. I want you to win this game, and if you study properly, you do your work, you will get it. So let's see how this class is divided. I have divided this class into 5 parts. In the first part, we will have a short introduction about the author. Second part, we will discuss about the work, the essay that we have to study. Then we will go on to the central argument. Whenever we study an essay, we must know what is a central argument in a very few sentences. That will help us to understand. Then we will go into a very short summary. Actually, I'm not going in depth. I will provide an extra notes for that. And finally, the 2 key terms that you will have to study in this part. So who is Stuart Hall, or who was Stuart Hall, in other words? And Stuart Hall's his full name is Stuart Henry Macphail Hall, 1932-2014, was actually West Indian by origin. He was half white, half West Indian. He was a Jamaican-born British Marxist cultural theorist, and he's known as one of the founding fathers of Birmingham School of Cultural Studies, where, Raymond Williams and all worked. He, up to 1971, he was working as a school teacher, and he was an editor of New Left Review. After 1971, he was highly influenced by structuralism and semiotics. We will move on to the next part about his work. His first book was The Popular Art, which was published in 1967, and he was deeply indebted to Hogarth and Raymond Williams, obviously. He joined CCCS in 1969. They say that we have to study Encoding and Decoding was published in 1973. Actually, rather it was a television discourse later published. Here, he attacks the communication model of American model of communication, sorry. If you look at the communication model, it says that there is a center. For example, in this case, I am the sender, and there is a message. I, what you may call, decode it using the system of video, and what happens is that you receive it and you understand and you reproduce it. So it's like if I say cat, you understand cat, but if I mean black cat, whether you understood white cat, we don't know. That is what Stuart Hall is trying to project. He says media communication is not as straightforward and innocent as we may think. So he says that in every media communication there are 4 stages. The first stage is the production of media message, then circulation, especially in the case of mass media, it uses different channels: newspaper, radio, television, mobile phone, internet. So it is circulated and consumed at different time. Remember, use it means people consume it and they reproduce it in a different context. So these are the 4 stages of communication. Now let's go into what is the central argument of this essay. Before that, we must know certain background. Actually, this essay, he wants to say how state controls TV. The ideology is in question. Actually, he says that TV is a medium to propagate the ideology of the ruling state. For that, he revokes the structuralist theories of ideology. Remember, it was Roland Barthes who first speak about how ideology is even infused within myths. And later, Louis Althusser said that how capitalistic societies are governed by certain ideology, and especially some state-ruled apparatus like schools, legal system, religious. So they are all controlled by certain ideology, and you live in without questioning them as if they are all taken for granted, or this is the way we have to live. So in other words, polysemy, that is multiple meaning, is not pluralism. That is what Stuart Hall is trying to say. And in depth, if you go there, that he is trying to challenge the 3 components of mass media model. As I told you, mass media, there is a model of communication. Since it's outside the purview of the video, I'm not providing it here. But understand that the basic component is that there is a message. It has to be sent through a medium, and a person must receive it, and he must use it something. Only then it becomes a circular model. He says that meaning is not fixed. That is the first point he is trying to say. Secondly, the message is never transparent. You hide it, many things. And the audience, they are not passive recipients. Basically, mass media has a feeling that when they air something, people are passively receiving it. No, they make different meanings based on their background, the culture, and the space of their consumption. So, And another thing is that language does not reflect reality. As I told you, he was highly influenced by structuralism. And structuralists, they distrust language. It was they who said that language is not a reflection of reality. Language is a different system. So ultimately, Stuart Hall says that what media does is that it turns a three-dimensional world into a two-dimensional world. He gives the example that in real, a dog can bark and bite. But in media, the dog can only bark and it cannot bite. And third thing, says that he was more interested in the political than the linguistic implication of language. As I told you, how ideology is hidden and packed into media messages, that is why he has explored the idea in the essay Encoding and Decoding. Now we go into the summary part. Actually, in the summary part, I have just 6 important points he has discussed. We will just go through it. The order has gone. The first part is, as it's a repetition of what I have already said, communication is not a two-way process. Messages are not received as intended. That's why when after some news channels air some news, some riots and everything happen, because it is not the way it is intended. He attacks the models of communication. The models of communication is not as transparent as it seemed to be. The second thing is that the behavioral models are flawed. Actually, he says that meaning is a social production. It is based on practice. And the referential knowledge of language, actually that is the structuralist notion that language does not stand for real world. And the third point is, they says that language is encoded by those means of production and then decoded by audience. Here, what he's trying to say is that when the media house, they have an ideology, they have a purpose. So they hide certain things or they distort. And what happens is that when the audience receives it, they do not receive the way it is intended. They make multiple meanings of the same thing. And the fourth thing is that encoding is institutionalized. Actually, as I told you, this is the same point said by the other essay that we studied, Theodore Adorno. There is no innocence in this media business. It is purely political, it is purely business, and it is also high budget. They have to make money. And media, he says, it works like language system. That is what he says. Media works like a language system. Actually, media is structured like a set of rules, codes. TV is a myth makeup constructor of ideology, according to Hall. And he says that newsworthiness is subjective. So these are the points he's trying to say. The sixth point here, Stuart Hall speaks about what is decoding. Actually, he spoke about the encoding part. Decoding is done by the audience. Actually, there are 3 things. Actually, he says that an audience member may not adopt a dominant code. Sometimes even the media houses wanted a particular kind of ideology to propagate. The audience member need not have to receive it in that manner. Second thing is that audience member may make a different meaning out of it. It always happens. Actually, it happens in real life communication. What we intend is not received on the other side. And third thing is that the audience member may completely disagree with the media house and decide to carry a different message. So in short, what Stuart Hall is trying to say is that the process of encoding and decoding, that is sharing messages through a mass medium, is never transparent, primarily because mass medium has got their own ideology and they use channels to communicate are not transparent as they are. And the audience member, as far as they are concerned, they come from different backgrounds: historical, regional, cultural, social, economical. So ultimately they receive it differently. So it is not as simple as the American model of communication. Finally, we have 2 terms to study. One is overdetermination and relative autonomy. Overdetermination is a Freudian term which is later developed by Althusser. He says that when we speak about media, we only speak about the speak about the economic part. Actually, media wants to make money. That is what also Theodore Adorno says. But here, Stuart Hall says, media is not always after money. Actually, there are something beyond money, ideological and political. So sometimes they, in order to propagate an ideology or a kind of politics, they will not even think of the money making process. And the other thing is relative autonomy. In the American model of communication, message, encoding, decoding, they are all connected. But Stuart Hall says they are all relatively autonomous. They are not connected. At each and every stage, they undergo different stages and you cannot put them in an order. So this is what he's trying to say in short. What he's trying to say is how media controls us, TV controls, how state controls media. All these things are discussed. I hope you understood it, and I request you to read the essay. Thank you very much.